Hello, Sanus here. Let's look into general exemptions from criminal liability, where it falls into two main categories: excuses and justifications. Excuses like insanity or duress recognize the defendant lacked the requisite mental capacity or was coerced, making punishment unjust. Justifications such as self-defense or necessity acknowledge the defendant's actions were actually socially acceptable or necessary. Despite meeting the technical elements of a crime, understanding the distinction between these two types of defenses is crucial when analyzing exemptions from criminal liability.
Hi, my name is Priyashni Velasamy. Excuses divided into three parts, which starts with infancy, unsoundness and intoxication. Infancy is an affirmative defense offered by a defendant in a criminal proceeding that the defendant did not have the mens rea necessary to be charged with the crime on account of their age. In other words, the defendant was too young to understand the wrongfulness of their actions. So for an example, a girl who is 16 years old decided she wants to buy a new teddy and she signed the contract for Rm200. After a week, that girl realized she doesn't need the teddy. She wants to return it back. Application of infancy here is the girl is a minor. The law gives her the right to cancel the contract. She goes back to the teddy shop, returns the teddy and gets her Rm200 back. The shop has to accept the return and refund her money because under the infancy, minors can disaffirm the contract to protect them from making impulsive or unwise decisions. So that's all from me. I'll pass to the next presenter to talk about unsoundness.
In criminal law, unsoundness of mind and intoxication are critical concepts that can influence the determination of a person's criminal liability. These concepts are rooted in the recognition that certain mental state can impair an individual's ability to understand the nature of their action or distinguish right from wrong. Penal Code provision. Unsoundness of mind. The concept of unsoundness of mind, often equated with mental illness or insanity, is addressed in Section 84 of the Indian Penal Code (IPC). This section states, Section 84, nothing is an offence which is done by a person who, at the time of doing it, is by reason of unsoundness of mind, incapable of knowing the nature of the act, or that he is doing what is either wrong or contrary to law. Example 1. Involuntary intoxication. Mary drinks a beverage at a party, not knowing its content a high dose of alcohol. In her intoxicated state, she accidentally damaged property. Since she was unlawfully intoxicated, Section 85 IPC might absolve her of liability. Example 2. Voluntary intoxication. Tom consumed alcohol voluntarily and then gets into a fight, injuring someone. Under Section 86 IPC, Tom's intoxicated state will not absolve him, but will be considered in determining whether he had the requested intention or knowledge while committing the act.
Consent and mistake. Let's see the consents. The consents based on the idea that people should have the freedom to decide what happened to their body and possession. In the consent also, they have two sections. The section is Section 87 and Section 88. Let's see the Section 87. The Section 87 Act not intend to can now to be likely to cause death. The meaning is which is done with the consent of a person affect and is not an offence by reason of any harm which it may cause. The Section 88 Act not intend to cause death by done by consent is in good faith for benefit Under this section, there is with the people's consent is not an offence by reason of any harm which it may cause to the person. And the second one is the mistake. Mistake is act as a possible defense that may release a person from the proceeding. The mistake fell into the two categories. That is mistake for fact and mistake for law. Let's see the mistake of fact. The mistake of the fact when a person has a failed brief about the fact that is critical to the commissions of the illegal crime. And the mistake of the law, on the other hand, involve a misunderstanding or ignorance of the law itself. In this section also we have the penal code section 76 act done by a person bored or by mistake of fact believing himself wrong. That means nothing is an offence which is done by a person who is or who by reason of the mistake of fact and not by reason of a mistake of law. And other section of the 79 act done by a person justify or by mistake of fact believe himself justify. The offence which is done by any person who is justified by law or who by reason of the mistake of the fact and not by reason of a mistake of law is good faith believing himself to be justified by the law. Thank you very much.
Accident. The penal code states that an act is not considered a criminal offence if it was done, first, by accident or misfortune, without any criminal intent or knowledge. Second, while performing a lawful act in a lawful manner using a lawful meaning. Third, with proper care and caution. Total acquittal. This refers to a complete exemption from criminal liability if an act falls under the definition provided in the penal code, done by accident, misfortune, without criminal intent or knowledge, through law meanings, and with proper care, then the person would be totally acquitted, meaning they would not be found guilty of any offence. All offences. This suggests that the penal code provisions apply to all criminal offences regardless of the specific crime committed. The exemption from liability is not limited to just certain type of offence but covers the entire range of criminal acts as long as the conditions defined in the penal code are met. The elements are prohibited result, which the act must not have resulted in an accident or misfortune. Second, without criminal intention or knowledge. The person must have acted without any criminal intent or knowing their action could lead to a criminal outcome. Third, lawful act in a lawful manner by lawful meaning. The act itself must have been lawful, carried out in a lawful way and throughout full method. Fourth is proper care and caution. The person must have excited proper care and caution while performing the act.
So moving forward with necessity. Necessity may apply when an individual commits a crime during an emergency situation in order to prevent a greater harm from happening. So in the circumstances, our legal system typically excuses the individual's criminal act because it was justified or finds that no criminal act has occurred. Although necessity may seem like a defense that would be commonly invoked by defendants seeking to avoid criminal charges, its application is limited by several important requirements, which are the defendants must reasonably have believed that there was an actual and specific threat that required immediate action. The defendant must have had no realistic alternative to completing the criminal act. The harm caused by the criminal act must not be greater than the harm avoided, and the defendant did not himself contribute to or cause the threat. Only if all of these requirements are met will the defense of necessity be applicable. It is also important to note that in some jurisdictions, necessity is never a defense to the killing of another individual, no matter what the threat may present.
Threat. The key element of a threat as a potential defense in criminal law, first, must be one of the death. The threat must be one of the death, not just extreme torture or serious injury. Secondly, must be one of instant that. The threat must be imminent, extreme and persistent danger such as instant threat. Third, must be directed at the accused himself. The threat must be directed specifically at the accused person and not any other individual. The concept of reasonable appreciation in the context of criminal law, it suggests that the threat defense to be valid, the accused must have had a reasonable belief that feeling they would experience an imminent feeling of extreme danger or threat. Next is kill. This threat result in them being killed if they did not comply. Third, fail to do what is commanded. They would fail to do what the threat maker commanded them to do, even if that means committing a criminal act.
Moving on to private defense. So it aims to protect one's own body and property and also another's body and property when immediate aid from authorities is not readily available. Nothing is an offense if done in private defense. So basically, every person has a right to defend his or another person's body against any harm affecting it, and every person has a right to defend his property or another's against any specific offense. And the right of private defense is essentially a defensive right circumscribed by the statute. So only when circumstances clearly justify it. There is no right of private defense against the act of public servant, or maybe the right cannot be used as a shield to justify an act of aggression. If a person goes to kill another with a gun, the intended victim is entitled to exercise the right of private defense. And if he does so, there is no right of private defense in the former to kill the latter. No one is allowed to devise a mechanism whereby an attack may be provoked as pretend for killing.
In conclusion, the legal system has several exceptions and defenses to ensure fairness. These include the infancy doctrine, which protects minors by letting them cancel contracts and reducing their responsibility. Unsoundness of mind excuses people with mental illness from liability, while involuntary intoxication can also be a defense. Freely given consent can remove criminal liability, and honest mistake can excuse action that would otherwise be crimes. Accidents causing unintended harm without negligence remove liability. Necessity justifies action taken to prevent greater harm, and threats or dues can excuse action taken under immediate danger. Finally, private defense allows protecting oneself or others from imminent harm. This exception and defenses make sure the law consider a person's intent, ability, and situation to ensure fair outcomes. That's all from all of us. Thank you so much.